Hey, welcome back. For our first lesson, we're going to focus on variables. To start out, what is a variable? Variables allow you to store information. This is most useful when wanting to use the same value over and over, or if you would like to track how something changes as your code proceeds. For example, say you have a sentence, "Hello world," and you would like to use it many times. You simply set it to a variable name, as shown here, and then use the variable name later when you need to use it again. We show here you can print your new variable, which we assign as Piggy, using a function called text. Functions are things that Code Shrew already knows how to do. So in this case, text means to output the Piggy variable so you can see it. When you have a variable, it really is just a stand-in for the value you assign to it. As shown in this example, you can set two variables, a and b, to 2 and 3. Then you can add them together using a plus b. As you can see here, this is interpreted as 2 plus 3, since a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 3. Note here we are using a plus sign, which is a mathematical operator. Mathematical operators are characters that can perform operations as you would normally see in math. Here are the 4 most common operators that you should be familiar with. So the plus sign means to add, the minus sign or dash means to subtract, the slash symbol means to divide, and the star or asterisk means to multiply. These operators are usually just used on numbers, but you can use the plus sign when working with letters. This brings us back to our example we were just looking at. It is noted here we can use mathematical operators on variables of the same type. So what are variable types? There are 4 types we will cover here. Note these are not all possible types, and other languages may call them something different. The first I'll mention is the integer type. Integers are any whole number, positive or negative. They can be big or small, but simply have to be a whole number, no fractions or decimals. The float type also represents numbers, but they don't have to be whole numbers. Next up, we have the string type, which is essentially any combination of letters, symbols, and numbers. Earlier we used "Hello World" as an example, but strings do not have to be complete sentences and don't even need to contain letters, as shown here with the 1, 2, 3. To assign a string to a variable, you just need to remember to use quotes as shown here. Lastly, we have the Boolean type, of which there are only 2 possible values, true or false. Note you don't need to use quotes here. Though this seems limited, this is a very important variable type, and we will talk more about this when we discuss if-else statements. One last thing to cover before we move on is that variables can be changed. So here we show leopard equals 3. Maybe we decide later to increase leopard by 1, so we use leopard equals leopard plus 1. This changes the leopard variable from 3 to 4. From there, we might decide to divide leopard by 2, so we use leopard equals leopard divided by 2, and now it equals 2. Variables can be changed as many times as needed, and as we start writing longer pieces of code, you will see how useful this can be. Now it's time to try out an animation in Code Shrew. Here is some code you can input directly into Code Shrew, and the video shows what you would get as output. There's a lot here, so let's go through each line one by one. The first line sets the background to be pink. The second line creates a circle variable and sets its height and width to 5 and the color to be white. The third line creates a second variable called grow and sets it to be 40. This fourth line starts an animation that cycles every 4 seconds. The fifth and sixth lines and the seventh line set the circle's width and height to the value we stored in our grow variable, and we set the color to red. As you can see, settings for the circle, also referred to as attributes, can be set when creating the circle or later using this dot notation. So overall, this creates a circle with a radius of 5 and creates an animation where our circle grows from a radius of 5 to a radius of 40 in 4 seconds, while also changing from white to red. As you can see, we were able to use our circle and grow variables to accomplish this. Alright, that's the end of the lesson for today, so head on over to the playground, play around with variables, integers versus floats, and things like that, and then move on when you're ready.